This week on Gravel, we've got all of the funny feelings we feel, the apprehension about the weather, how angry we get at our dogs, the natural disasters that make us stay up at night, and that funny feeling that Andrew felt down there when he first saw Daisy Duke. You'll hear it all on Gravel.
Well, welcome, audiophiles, back to another episode of On Gravel. This is Andrew McKean. I'm talking at you from relatively balmy Glasgow, Montana.
I'm in a hotel in Denver, Colorado at the North American Wildlife Conference. And by Denver standards, the weather kind of sucks. It snowed a little bit this morning, and it's been below freezing, and all the locals are complaining about it. But I feel no sympathy, because when I get home, I'm going to get home just in time for another 10-inch snowstorm.
Good times. I'm in Lincoln. 6 more inches of snow last night. We broke the all-time record in Lincoln, Nebraska for snowfall in a winter, and we still have a couple weeks to go, I would assume. So no school today in Lincoln. Kids are in the office watching movies on the projector, happy as clams, excited not to have school. I'm ready for warm weather, but we didn't get on this podcast to talk about weather again, did we, McKean? What are we talking about today?
Oh, come on. We have to talk a little bit of weather. I mean, if nothing else, you can consider this a call for help. But the day before yesterday, I tried to blast out the drifted snow in my 125-yard long lane and got my truck stuck 3 times. That was not the way to start a day. In fact, it got worse because I turned around, so I finally got out. I didn't want to back into more snow, so I did a 26-point turn and got my pickup turned around, and got it stuck again, turning it around. I had to have my kids, who were already late for school, they were driving, pull me out. And my daughter, who was in the back seat, my boys were driving. One of my boys was at the wheel. I just kept hearing, "Dad, we're going to be late. Dad, we're going to be late." And I wasn't at my best. But they pulled me out, and they got to school on time, and I'm here to talk about it. That's all I'm going to say about the weather.
I have found that our local schools have been very, very sympathetic for late arrivals this winter. So, just common courtesy when the weather's this bad. I think tardies probably don't show up on the permanent record.
Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about today. Dinger, you had observed that we've been remiss in our dog stories. And you thought it would be good to have a little dog interlude. And I think the way you pitched it was the proudest you've been of your dog and the least proud, red-eyed, angry you've ever been at your dog. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. Natural disasters are at least on my mind a little bit. And then I think we've got a proposal for a brand new big game, really any game, scoring metric. So kind of a big show this week.
Stay tuned.
So, Dinger, this is your idea. What's the proudest you've ever been of your dog, little Scout?
Well, I don't have a very old dog, but I do have one time where her behavior stood out above any other time. I was in South Dakota this last fall. It seems like that happens to me a lot. Almost all my stories seem like they come from there. I need to get out a little bit. But we were actually on the original Dinger family homestead in Detroit Township, Brown County, South Dakota, which is way up east of Hecla, South Dakota, way up by the North Dakota border. And I hadn't been letting Scout hunt with us much because we were in a big group and we had a lot of dogs, and she was at the time about 7 or 8 months old. And so this Scout is my first dog of my own. And so not knowing a lot about how to control her in an environment like that and not wanting to shock her and get her, completely riled up, I just kind of waited for the times when I could break off on my own or maybe walk around and block and have her sit next to me. And so we were walking around the end of what is my great uncle's cornfield. And they own the property now, still in the Dinger family, which is kind of cool. And walked around the end, and it was one of those kind of ends of the cornfield where it just felt right. You know, there was weeds at the end, and there was a fence off to my right, and a plowed bean field off to the right. So across from the sort of dirty corn was a plowed bean field. And so I had Scout work this little patch of grass back and forth for a little while. And lo and behold, a single rooster gets up. She got it up. She saw it fly. She saw it go down, and she looked at me like, "Oh, can I go get that?" And so I helped her over the fence, and she ran out and got it and played around with it for a little bit,
Well,
and then ran it right back to me and handed it to me. So under the fence, I helped her under the
over
fence.
And this is a dog you're proud of that can't cross a fence?
I mean, she's from Nebraska, so we take it slow around here. No, you know the deal. She's not seen a lot of fences, so the last thing I wanted for her to do was go barreling across the fence and end up in the emergency room doing stitches. So I did, in fact, pick up the bottom line of the fence, and she crossed under, ran and got it, played around with it for a little bit, and I was able to call her back, and she brought me her first bird. Well, then I had kind of jogged around the end and become the blocker. And so 2 more roosters did the same thing coming out of the cornfield. And so within her first 20 minutes of ever having retrieved a bird, she retrieved all 3 of them and brought them to me. And that's like, I don't know, it like opened Pandora's box for me. Like, I've always had dogs. Our family has always hunted around dogs, hunted, upland birds with good dogs for all of my life. But there's just something totally different that happens. And I know you guys know this, and I'm probably, most of our listeners who are upland hunters know this, but when it's your dog and you've put in the work and it's you feeding it and you getting up in the middle of the night to let her out and stuff, there's just something super cool when it all comes together. So by far the time that I was most excited to have a dog and most proud of Scout was that first retrieve that turned into 3 retrieves within about 20 minutes. So how about you, McKean? What about you? What about your dog?
The list of proud moments with Miss Nellie is short and memorable. The list of unproud, embarrassed, irate moments with Nellie is long, and they pretty much all look the same. But I do have a couple. There's a couple moments. It's funny. Like, I think Nellie. Well, I know Nellie has a little different experience than Miss Scout does. Nellie's big issue to resolve is she has so much prey drive and so little regard for management that she really just wants to hunt by herself. And
so she's a
it's
coyote.
kind of funny because yeah, she is actually. My old dog Nellie, or Willow, had kind of the opposite problem. She was such a companion. She loved to be right in my shadow, literal like sun shadow. And I would have to really work to get her cast out and to hunt out. Nellie's the other end of the extreme. I'm trying to just tether her in and keep her close and remind her that she's hunting for me. And so that tension is really distracting when we're hunting a lot. But after really reining her in, I was actually embarrassed and pretty worried about hunting with another person or another dog. And the first time we went out together with a buddy and their dog, I just reined her in constantly, such to a degree that I wasn't having much fun hunting, and she wasn't either. She just wanted to just rip her wide open. Well, I shot a bird and I saw it go down. And one thing, this was pheasant hunting and pretty heavy cover, kind of near a slough with a bunch of orchard grass. I'm really conscious of watching birds go down, and if their head isn't done, if they're not falling dead, I'm pretty interested in getting over to where they went down right away, because I'm going to guess that they're going to run. Well, this bird went down. One wing was certainly broken. It looked like a leg was dropped, but its head was very much up. So I saw it go down. Nellie also saw it go down. She could not find it anywhere. And I was like, doggone it. I wonder if it just tucked into some cattail root wads or what happened. And finally she had snuffed around there long enough. I was pretty happy because she was right there. She kept looking at me. I was sending hand signals, trying to cast her around in a little bit larger area. And finally, she just disappeared. I couldn't see her, but the cover was kind of heavy. So I walked over. She was nowhere to be seen. And I'm about to lose my cool because I'm like, oh, here we go. Nellie got on the scent of another bird and she's out hunting for herself. Well, she came, it was about 10 or 12 minutes later, she came from the opposite direction of the way I was looking with the bird in her mouth. It had obviously run. She had picked up the renewed scent track and went and got it. I still don't really know what happened. I didn't see her get it. I don't know where it was hiding. I don't know how far she had to go, but it was pretty cool. It all kind of worked. So it was kind of proof that there are times to give them their head, give them their nose, and let them hunt for themselves. How about you, Bronson?
I don't have a lot of huge accomplishments yet with my new pup, Soka. Didn't get to hunt as much this fall as I would have liked. I mean, she made some good retrieves and had some good times. I think the most proud moment I had with her was last summer. We were working on the platform command, where a lot of duck guys hunt flooded timber and places like that, where they'll have their dogs sit up on the platform and stay there and then do the retrieve. So just not that I hunt that way very often, but it just seemed like a discipline that we could work on in the backyard. So I went out in the backyard, set up my kennel, and was working with her. And then my son came up and he wanted to handle her. And so I stepped back and just took out my phone and filmed it, and he handled her. And, he tapped up on the platform and said platform, and she hopped up there and she sat down and he threw the dummy and she watched it and she marked it and she waited for the command and she made the retrieve and brought it right back, hopped up on the platform, handed him the bird, and he turned and looked at me with such a big grin on his face because he was so proud that he had just handled the dog perfectly, which caused pride in me to know that, one, my son likes being a dog handler, which is good. But also that, the work that I'd been putting into her for the last couple of days, teaching her that, actually transferred to an 8-year-old. So that's probably been my high point thus far, with Soka. And so that's not even, it was in my backyard on my old house, so wide open, cookie cutter neighborhood, suburban grass yard, but it's been the high point. There's been a heck of a lot of low points.
Bronson, was I there? Was I there for your first pheasant hunt with Soka? Was that in Colby, Kansas?
Yes, that was her first time hunting pheasants. She'd hunted ducks up to that point, but that was her first time actually chasing wild pheasants. So that was her, So you may have noticed I tried to keep off to myself as much as I could on an edge so that I could try to keep her reined in. But I think she was figuring it out by the end. She was certainly at the end. She was rooting up some birds and figuring out even quail. But she's she's not a pro yet, but she's getting there. And she was sure happy to go sniff that coyote that you shot. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you guys, I'm sure you guys have read Richard Walter's books and things, but I've started to watch a few of these online trainer guys here and there. And one of the real insights that, I can't remember the guy's name, but he started his video series with, are you going to have a hunting dog, or are you going to have a family dog that hunts sometimes? If you're going to have a family dog that hunts sometimes, he kind of pointed to different videos you should watch than if you're going to have a hunting dog, trial dog, and things like that. And I thought that was a really interesting way of thinking about it, because as much as I want to believe I have a hunting dog, 95% of her waking life, she is either with me in the office or with our family doing something. And so to think that I would have a dog on, my dad pheasant hunts, I don't know, 50 or 60 days a year. I probably pheasant hunt 15 days a year. To think I'm going to have a dog on that level is a little presumptuous, to say the least. And so I thought that was an interesting thing. Do you guys believe that, or is it just dogs should hunt and be a pet second?
Well, it's funny. I think that's a lot of the tension that Nellie has. I describe her, she is a Weimaraner trapped in a lab's body. She is built to hunt full time. And I think when she gets in trouble is because she gets bored of being a family dog. She would rather be hunting the whole time. And I'm kind of like you. I mean, I live in the country. We've got hunting all around us, but I'm a working stiff, and I gotta work and be a family man a lot more than I am a hunter. And so I think that frustrates her sometimes. She's trying to figure out that boundary, but I think it's a very good distinction. And I'm trying to make a hunting dog into a family dog.
Yeah.
I know some of the dog trialers, they really want their dogs to kind of be almost mechanic, because that's how you win a trial. The dog doesn't get distracted. It's laser focused. But I think that the attitude that the dog's either going to be a working dog or a family dog, I think the vast majority of dogs are in the middle somewhere these days. And I saw on social media recently, Kyle Winterstein posted a series of pictures of his champion Springer Spaniels that he runs. And they were just being clowns in the house on the couch playing with his kids. And his post had something to the effect of, a master hunter champion field trialing dog doesn't make a good family dog, in quotes, when his dogs clearly do. And Soka is not from masterclass stock. When I picked her out, intentionally because she was from more, a general family hunting line. She's proven that her prey drive is strong. Her intensity to keep looking and keep looking and keep looking and not give up is strong. But, the vast majority of the time she's a family dog. But I think I've experienced a little bit what you just described, Andrew, is that when she really gets bored and wants to go hunt, that's when we have the war of wills. That's when she goes outside and suddenly loses her hearing and can't hear me when I call her and just, keeps sniffing and looking any direction but back at me. That happens, if I haven't been working her out or if we've been pent up and the squirrels aren't around. But every single time I open the door to let my dog out, she tears around the house because there's a couple of different trees where there's squirrels all the time. And she's just hunting squirrels outside constantly. I have guys tell me you shouldn't let your bird dogs chase squirrels and chase rabbits. Well, my dog derives too much joy from that. I can't withhold that from her. Plus, it's good exercise.
Okay, Dinger, what's the, besides crapping all over your office, when has Scout been in the not only figurative but literal doghouse with you?
Well, the office pooping incidents were pretty brutal, but it's hard to be mad at her when, I should have let her out, right? Now, Bronson, if my payback from putting coffee sticks all over your office is you're going to poop in my office, I will be mad at you. Just a heads up. But
what would make you even madder?
Oh man,
what I'm trying to figure out is what would really, really, really drive you nuts, and then that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I bet you do. And why would I tell you that? So before I answer, how many meetings have you been in where you've had stir sticks?
Couple. I haven't been in the office very much, so I found all the stir sticks that were in my notebook that I bring on meetings. So those I got rid of on the first day here in Denver. I haven't found any more since the first day, but I'll be back in the office next week, so I'll report.
Okay. Well, the only thing that Scout's really done that's been, she's done the, take off and ruin a hunt kind of deal. But that, again, I think a lot of the venom I have for that is my inability to control her. It's not like, a puppy's not going to get excited and go chase the other dogs. And when they see somebody across the field until they're taught otherwise, they're going to go run and check it out. So she's done that a time or two, which is obviously pretty annoying, but she's actually not ruined a good hunt yet, thankfully, somehow. But the one thing that she does, and I think I might have mentioned this to you guys, but she is such a licker. And so every time, like every morning, every time I see her, every time she sees anybody else, she goes and gives them this big slobbery lick. And if I'm not paying attention to her in the office, she'll come lick my arm or something like that. I think I actually have it. I have a broke of it now, finally. I actually watched the same guy talk about how to do that. And basically it was, if I'm giving her attention after she licks, I'm positively reinforcing that. So I taught everybody in the house to, if she licks, we ignore her or walk away from her. And she's actually really come around maybe in the last 2 weeks or so to where she's not doing it as much. But by far, when I'd get mad at her, it's because I think, and a lot of people let dogs lick, and I just think it's gross. I don't know why, but I don't know. I don't want her licking my kids. I don't want her to lick people we don't know. I just think it's kind of a gross habit to let her do. So I think we've got that kicked. And honestly, it's been really crazy. I've really committed to, we throw a Nerf frisbee at night. And as long as I do that with her, or my wife does that with her, she's been an absolute joy to have around. She's kind of come around to the office thing. So she just hangs out, and I don't know, she's everything I ever wanted in a dog, like just calm enough to be enjoyable to be around, and then still can get out and get it done when we go hunting. So it's been a little while since I've been actually mad at her. How about you? How about you, Andrew?
Come on. That is all right. Well, I mean, first of all, I'd probably be basting my arm in Frank's Red Hot sauce. That'll cure a lick.
Yeah, well.
Yep.
But then you have Red Hot sauce on your arm at the office.
We're just on a whole different scale. I daily just lose my absolute temper at Nellie. And she responds by, she's got these like really striking yellow eyes that we thought she would grow out of when she was a pup. It was really cute when she was a pup, but now that she's an adult dog, when she is in trouble, she just looks at you with this scorn. And all I can think of is those two eyes look like double piss holes in the snow.
Great band name. Double piss holes in the snow.
So just yesterday, she was, so here's the thing. If you're a country dog, there's one thing that you just don't do. You just don't run away. And part of it is personal safety. There's a county road that goes by the house not too far away. I don't want her getting run over. I don't want her chasing cars. My previous dog, Willow, just was a hearth dog. She just loved a welcome mat to hang out by. She would never roam. She was the easiest dog in the world that way. Miss Nellie has a tendency to just disappear. So that's pretty irking, and part of it again is that individualistic trait where she wants to do stuff herself. She's not doing it for us. The problem is, I don't want to get back into how bad this winter has been, but it's been a pretty bad winter if you're an animal husband. We've got a cow-calf operation right below us. We help out with a little bit. And last weekend, we lost every calf that was born because of the intense cold. We've lost 3 mama cows. So the ground's frozen. There's nowhere to put them. So there's a bunch of carcasses laying down in the corral. When Nellie disappears, I know exactly where she's going. Last night, she disappeared for a while. My wife said, I can't find her. She was eating a calf. Like, that pisses me off. Mm-hmm. So she didn't have, it's not a good habit. So, unfortunately, it's so cold and so miserable. Is the solution just to keep her inside all the time, or just to keep her at heel all the time? And probably, but those are pretty labor intensive things. So I was pretty pissed at her last night.
So have you thought about keeping a shock collar on her all the time? That way, when she disappears, you can use it as a locator. Turn it up to 11, hit zap, and
yeah, I think that's one solution for us. I mean, unfortunately, the one collar I have right now runs off a phone app, and so it loses connections. It's kind of clunky that way, and I need to upgrade into something that's just a little bit more nimble. She's pretty responsive to that shock collar, and I think that would be something that when she starts to transgress, I can correct her right away. The issue is, I think she's sneaky enough. She knows when she's out of eyesight and voice shot. She's kind of, you said it, Dinger. She turns into kind of a coyote.
Just down. So what happened with the cow? What happened with the calves?
Well, they're just frozen. They're kind of stacked up in kind of the boneyard. The cows are kind of, it's pretty grim. I'm not going to lie to you. The Northern Plains are going through pretty much a resetting kind of a winter here. If you're a marginal cow-calf operator and you lose, a dozen or 15 or 20 calves, you might be out of business. Most operators don't have insurance for them. The 3 cows that died were holdover older cows. We decided to hold over because it looked like they were going to, be able to put out one more calf. That was a decision was predicated on a pretty open winter. So they were older cows going into a winter. They were a little bit hippie and ribby, not in the best physical shape, and they just didn't make it. They died. All 3 of them died in calving, process of calving.
Wow. Is that pretty widespread up there?
Yeah.
That puts a different view or a lens on winter for those of us living in town. I don't think about things like that very often, but a lot of people's livelihoods are directly affected by how hard this winter's been. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's terrible.
Yeah. Here at the North American Conference, the directors from the Northern Plains states are all pretty concerned about their bird numbers too. That they're worried that there aren't going to be a lot of pheasants carrying through in some of these places where the snow is completely filled in every cattail slough and every shelter belt and everything else. So it's hitting wildlife too. Oh, and I'm hearing that we've seen it. Andrew's got antelope in his backyard where they don't belong because they're just getting worn out being out there in the open prairie with all that snow.
It's interesting. Speaking of pheasants, the last really bad winter we had was 2004 was a really bad one up here, and it was so bad that a lot of the landowners lobbied the legislature to allow winter feeding of pheasants, and so the game agencies typically are not in favor of supplemental feeding in the wintertime for all the right reasons. I think it unnaturally concentrates animals and they get dependent on that handout. But a bunch of landowners got together and had a gigantic spent grain feeding operation to sustain pheasants in about a 3-county area. Unfortunately, they forgot one element. They forgot to put some grit or sand with the grain.
Yeah.
And so these pheasants would go dine on the handout, but they couldn't digest it and they all died anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay, then. Well, Bronson, do you have a bad dog story?
Well, my bad dog story, it's happened to both me and my wife. We had the exact same experience with Soka, where we let her out at night, and she's a black dog in a dark neighborhood, so you can't hardly see her. So you turn the lights on and you go out, and she's smelling something that is interesting to her, and you call her, and she won't come to you. And then the neighbor opened up his door to let his dog out. Well, the neighbor she'll go to, and she makes a beeline over to the neighbor, and my neighbor Kurt's a great guy, but he's got a little one boot furry dog. It's a cat, except it's it's on a leash, so it's a dog. And she goes over there and says hi to him and scares the little dog, and then we call her and she won't come, and then we walk over to her, and then she just skirts you at 10 yards and keeps that distance and won't come and just acts like she can't hear you. But she's not ignoring you. She's just, whatever I'm sniffing here on the ground is just so interesting. And she's clearly just defying us. And it's one of those things that the neighbor's outside. So when you catch up with the dog, you just want to give her a whooping. It's socially you just can't, it's not done. So you can't, so you yell at the dog and you bring her inside. So I'm in the mode now where, I put her collar on her every day, and I'm hoping that she forgets she's got it on and she tries to pull that crap. Because if she remembers that her collar's on, she behaves, great. But what I need her to do is forget she's wearing her shock collar, and then I can give her a correction. So
yeah,
but I love that dog.
My son responds to the collar in much the same way. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, we kind of edged into this just a little bit, and I think I need to kind of correct my reputation just a little bit. Like I'm genuinely and generally a pretty happy person. It's just this winter's kind of wearing me down a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's in prelude to the next topic I want to talk about. And this is, I mentioned it to the two of you guys in an email, but it's, we talk a little bit, well, when we talk about wildlife management, we talk about limiting factors, and I think one of the things that in the course of an education of a hunter, it's understanding it's not just maybe forage, for a deer, or it's maybe not just whatever cool water for a fish. It has to be year round availability of this thing year round, and the limiting factor is that one thing that is in short supply for it might not be year round, but it might just be in one season or another. So I take that limiting factor idea and I've applied it to myself a little bit. And that is, what's the limiting factor of wherever I live? As our listener might remember, the McKean household moved about 6 miles from our previous homestead this fall. Our previous homestead was in the Milk River Valley, right in the floodplain, a mile away from the river, but we had in our occupancy there about 15 years, we had 2 100-year floods, and one of them was a 1,000-year flood. We couldn't get to town. I thought we were going to lose the house. So to me, when I thought about okay, what's the natural disaster I need to be most prepared to defend myself against, it was flooding. Well, we moved 6 miles away. Now we live up on a hill. We live kind of on the downwind side of a big CRP field. We had a pretty tough, droughty summer. And as we were building our house and kind of thinking about moving in, I kept thinking about, man, that CRP is also in block management, which is our hunting access program. Man, if there's a negligent upland hunter who drops a cigarette in that CRP on a windy, dry day, we're kind of downwind of that. I'm like, man, I should kind of defend our homestead against prairie fire. So I have this theory, and I'd like you guys to either destroy it or bear it out, that no matter where you live as a human being, you kind of have an eye on the worst case scenario, what might happen, what you're either consciously or subconsciously preparing yourself to defend against. Does that make sense? Am I just being too morose?
I think you may want to consider.
I think you're being rural.
You may consider a moat. They're tough to do on the top of a hill,
Yeah.
but it is an option.
Yeah.
You're being rural. That's one of the nicer compliments I've ever heard anybody say to somebody else. Is that the new insult on gravel? Now you're just being rural.
No, I actually take it as a good compliment.
I do too. I think it's a nice.
In fact,
I
took it that way. If I have to extend this sort of line of inquiry a little bit, I guess I think that more people should think rural. Yeah. I think we've, and I don't want to get too, dogmatic about it, but in some ways we've allowed our communities or our municipalities to take that question away from us. Oh, we'll figure out fire suppression, or, the city will figure it out. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But being rural, you're kind of on your own.
When seconds count, the police and the fire department are minutes away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's a good thing to think about, Andrew. What it strikes me as, you describing your life and the things that you think about and deal with, you were just living a series of Laura Ingalls Wilder books. You're currently going through the long, hard winter, and
yeah, right.
But if you remember Little House on the Prairie, that Pa had to fight a big giant prairie fire that almost burnt down their sod cabin too. So I'm looking forward to hearing what latest adventure comes from the Half Pint family on Plum Creek.
Well, that's a really nice way of saying it. One of my other friends, once I was late for a meeting because I had to go to a rodeo committee meeting, he said, "You sound like your life is a Sam Shepard play."
Oh, yeah.
I prefer Laura Ingalls Wilder and Pa.
Okay.
There's a lot less drinking.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Edwards once saved their Christmas by crossing the creek with the Christmas presents, above his head. The little McKean kids were all happy. They got real rock candy that Christmas. It was great.
You still haven't answered my question. What are you afraid of?
For me, with my new house, it is wind. It's a tornado and windstorm. So I have a really heavily wooded lot. I've got these big, mature oak trees. I've got a couple of black walnuts, and I've got a big cottonwood. And they all are very close to my house. And if they were to blow down and hit my house, that would be a pretty nasty thing. So that's what I think about the long term. But here it's my first winter dealing with this new house, and I've got a lot of roof lines. I am up on my roof every snowstorm dealing with ice dams and trying to keep ice dams from forming and, getting water coming through my roof and coming through my ceilings and causing water damage. Those are the things that I'm on. But ice dams, that sounds too city slicker of an issue to deal with. So I'm worried about the next tornado that comes roaring through.
So that's cute that, you're worried about tornadoes in Minneapolis when I live in Nebraska. That's adorable. That's like me worrying about snow relative to you guys. So as your tornado mentor, I will tell you the natural disaster I'm most afraid of by far is my mother-in-law moving into our house.
Clearly.
But what are you doing to mitigate it?
Fire suppress it. I don't know.
Is that a redhead joke?
Yes. Well, you laughed at something I said. Oh.
No, I was laughing in front of him.
Yeah, he laughed at my making the joke.
I thought I'd made the joke, but
next time, Dinger. Next time I know I'll laugh.
I felt a twinge of joy there for just a second, only to have it. I'm back in my doghouse, my humor cellar, whatever you want to call it. No, I mean we live in tornado range, I guess you could call it. For some reason, I'm fascinated by them. I've been in 3 of them. My dad would tell you that probably the most we were talking about how pissed we'd been at our dogs. I think my dad was as mad at me once as you get at Soka, where he probably would have wrung my neck if it was socially acceptable. In Miller, South Dakota, we were at a little campground, and a tornado lit on the water across from me while I was fishing. And I think I was maybe 12 or 13, but I had never in my life ever caught fish as fast and as big as I had leading up to that storm. And so I wouldn't go into the shelter until finally the tornado's kicking up water across the lake. But man, the fishing was so good. And so I ended up running into the house or whatever, the bathroom, I guess it was. And the tornado literally went right over our campsite. Our tent was about 300 yards away in the top of a cedar tree. So, or maybe the pine tree. I don't remember. But so, yeah, I guess I'm supposed to be afraid of tornadoes in this part of the country. But the mother-in-law joke, I guess, is real. We're getting to that age where our parents are going to have to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. And I do really love my mother-in-law. So when my wife hears this, I don't end up in the doghouse. But that does scare the crap out of me. The dynamic in my family right now is so much fun because my kids are at fun ages, and they're kind of big enough to where we can sleep in a little bit, and they can get up and fend for themselves. And it's just a really joyous phase in life, and I guess I'm joking about the mother-in-law thing, but I guess I'm most worried about like what's going to happen that's going to take us out of this sort of sweet spot we're in. Like my parents are healthy, my family, my kids are healthy, the kids are at a fun age. I'm working on a problem I care about at work. And I realize that isn't answering your question. I just took it a totally different direction. But man, I realize that this isn't going to last very long. And when my mother-in-law moves in, it will signal the end for me. And that is in every way possible a natural disaster. I'm just kidding, Kay. I'm just kidding. I love you.
Do you think she'd want to join us on our podcast?
No, there's no chance she's ever listened to this podcast. Andrew and I met our listener, Brooks. He's the guy.
Hansen?
Yeah, he's the listener, he says. And he got you some Triscuits.
Well, he did. Speaking of Brooks, he got me set up with my new smoker from Camp Chef, and I got to tell you, the first thing I made was I took inspiration from you, Eric, when you said you were going to make bruschetta out of a goose. I made bacon out of a goose,
Prosciutto.
and holy crap, right, that's what you were going to make.
Yep.
What did I say?
Bruschetta.
Prosciutto. Oh,
Bruschetta. I
I'm
was not
sorry.
going to make bread
Well,
out of my goose.
I'm not. I want to apologize to all of the Italians out there. Do you put Parmesan cheese on either one of those? But anyway, I made bacon, and my family loves goose bacon, and now I have completely changed course. I was always the guy that was more than happy to let everyone else take the geese. I'll take the ducks. But I think I now have found the best and highest use for Canada goose is making bacon out of them. So thanks, Brooks. I appreciate that. And I got to tell you, that Camp Chef Smoke Pro works really great.
What'd you think of the Triscuits?
The Triscuits are great. So you gotta if you mash them up enough. I've told you this already, that they make great fish batter, but only for northern pike.
With Miracle Whip.
Mm-hmm. So if you think that I'm shameless in doing plugs for my company brands like Smoke Pro, from Camp Chef, which is, for full disclosure, I work for the company that owns them. So any of my endorsements you need to just throw out the window because I'm biased. But last night I was also a guest on our sister podcast, Your Mountain, and I think I did about 8 different plugs for On Gravel during that, to the point where they were ready to cut off my mic. So we have completely reduced Your Mountain to gravel.
Kind of a geologic force.
Yes.
Natural disaster. Natural disaster. Bronson on your podcast. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me.
That was a chuckle. Just a chuckle. Oh, there's a train. I don't know if you can hear it. We got one. Yeah, there's the train. The old, let's see. The old 153 is about a half hour late. So here's the dichotomous question for today. And the train is actually a really good cue. Merle or Waylon?
Oh. Wow.
I know. I've been kind of savoring this one. I was thinking about it the other day. So, for the uninitiated, I'm asking to kind of pick between some brothers here, Merle Haggard or Waylon Jennings. What's your preference? Which side are you on, Ryan Bronson?
Wow, that is
Thanks
hard.
For picking him first. It's like which of your kids do you like better?
Yeah,
I'd be struggling with this more than I would with that one, actually.
So I currently have a 9-year-old that rides with me, shares my interest in music, but I have to edit the songs that I play, because a lot of that old gritty country that I think Merle and Waylon epitomize, the topics and things are probably not appropriate for a 9-year-old. They aren't always the greatest role models for what you want your children to grow up and be. But if I were to look at those two, I would probably say, even though Merle was in jail, Waylon, some of his lyrics are a little grittier and more risque than Merle. So I'm going to go with Merle Haggard. Every time I go on a trip, I play on on Silver Wings. That's how I start a road trip.
So
Silver Wings. How about you, Dan?
I was going to say Waylon Jennings, maybe because he's from Texas and not California. But one of the things I think is hilarious about Waylon Jennings is, have you guys ever heard that Lukenbach, Texas is not actually even a town?
I've been to Lukenbach, Texas. Yeah.
Right. It's like a
dance hall.
It's
a dance hall in one house.
Yep. Isn't that amazing?
I won a free beer in Lukenbach, Texas.
What were you doing there?
One time. I've been to Lukenbach twice. Well, I was in West Texas for work. I was out at the National 4-H shooting sports competition that was in Kerrville, which is just west of there. And so I went over to Lukenbach because if you're that close, you got to make the pilgrimage. And it's a dance hall and a gift shop and a bar. And so I walked in, and they have live music all the time. There was a couple of guys picking and grinning in the back. And I ordered a Shinerbach. And this guy sang a song about Bellican beer. And he says, I'll buy a beer for anyone knows where Bellican beer is from. And there was like 4 of us in the bar. And I said, Belize. And he bought me a beer. And I only knew that because I went to Belize on my honeymoon and drank copious amounts of Bellican beer. So I had the musician buy me a beer in Lukenbach, Texas. That sounds like a country song to me.
Uh-huh. I think my answer is going to be Waylon Jennings, because long before I could relate to his music, the Dukes of Hazzard theme, it was like an anthem for my childhood. I loved that show when I was a little boy. And so there's my answer for a totally trivial reason. I mean, the Highwaymen, his work with Willie. I love Willie. I've seen Willie maybe 6 or 8 times. That he can't even sing anymore, but he's just something about it. A goofy political guy, I guess, but pretty fun. How about you, McKean?
Well, I mean, it was not a casual question. I struggled with it myself, but I think before I get to my answer, I had a deep interest in Dukes of Hazzard, to the degree I tried to emulate a lot of what I saw on television in my juvenile life.
Did you slide across the hood of your
my
Nissan?
First girlfriend was. I did that, and I did it with my buddy's Chrysler, 1968 Chrysler, his dad's pride and joy, and caused rivet scratches all across the hood and had to buff them out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that on the television show, do you?
No.
Levi 501s do that.
Yep. I should also keep my somewhat off-color humor alive and say I had my first erection to Daisy. So Waylon figures heavily in my life, but I'm going with Merle. I think for kind of some reasons you might suspect. He lived what he sang about. I think in some ways he epitomized a lot of that American Western movement. The Okie going to California, down and out, going to prison. I mean, I think he's the legitimate successor to Woody Guthrie in a lot of ways. And I think the kind of things he sang about and just the place in the Pantheon is a pretty good linkage between those traditions. And so I still think he's the man. He is the man.
He's a Steinbeck character. Yeah. It's just in the modern, in more modern setting.
Yeah. This begs the follow-up question. Hey,
I'm not disparaging Waylon at all.
Hey, Bronson, when did you get your first? Never mind. Don't laugh at me.
Oh. So just so you guys know, as I'm writing my notes for what the intro is going to be for this episode, I'm trying to figure out if I can actually make reference to what Andrew just talked about without my wife, completely going apoplectic.
Will you say that differently? Because your son's going to listen to this podcast and he's going to say, Dad, why do you have to use such ridiculous words?
He will say that, won't he?
Yes, he will. Apoplectic.
No. If you don't know what apoplectic.
I know what it means, but your son's going to be beside himself.
And I should probably explain myself too. All I was talking about is we used to put up.
No, we're good.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
and I think I put up my first grain bin listening to the Dukes of Hazzard thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on. So there's one last thing I want to talk about. Bronson alerted us that, he'd gotten the score back from. I can't. I'm sorry.
I've left.
I'm done.
Never mind. Go ahead. Sorry.
Last thing we want to talk about today is it's kind of a modest proposal to reevaluate how we are assessing the animals we kill. There's been this kind of I think a lot of kind of self-righteous movement a little bit in terms of, like, let's not, let's downplay the trophy nature of the animals we hunt. And I think that's all right and good. I still think we have a fetish with big antlers and horns, and yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's part of the hunting experience. But I'm looking for a way that we can start to have a shorthand and a way that we describe the true trophy parts of an animal, which is the meat that we bring home and then feed our families. And so this is my proposal, that we develop the TMI, the Toothsome Meat Index, that looks at, it's a way to evaluate the amount and the palatability of the meat that we put on our tables. The kind of the way it works is this, this is wide open. This is just a skeleton waiting to be filled in, maybe a rib cage waiting to be covered, maybe a femur waiting to be shanked. It's the quantity of meat, but it's also the tendersome. That's the toothsome part of it. How tender it is, how much of it is not ruined in the shot or the post-shot care. I don't know. So I was playing with kind of how it might work in a practical application. So you shoot the biggest antlered, oldest creature on the hill, this big skanky male. You're going to hang those antlers forever on your wall, but the TMI is going to be fairly low. You might have a lot of meat, but it's going to be tough and old, and maybe it's going to be in the heat of the rut, so it's got a little bit of a kind of off taste to it. That'd be a low TMI. A fawn might be tender as could be, but there's not going to be as much of it as you would hope for. A fat doe that you shoot with a bow, you ruin very little meat. It comes out in great chunks out of the field without losing any. It's the right time of year. You put it all up. That's going to have a high TMI. Anyway, that's my proposal. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me this is just rank nonsense. What do you think?
Okay, so Andrew, first of all, after your little comment about Daisy Duke and your first erection, no one is ever going to accuse you of low TMI.
Bravo.
So that's just to get that joke out on the table. Then what? How many kins is that?
Solid 3.2.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-4. Well done, sir.
So thank you. So I'm on board with this TMI as another ranking. Now I'm at the North American Conference, and the Boone and Crockett Club is having meetings here. So I want to make sure that I'm not disparaging the Boone and Crockett system of measuring antlers. It is a arbitrary measurement to measure the health of an individual animal. So that's, the Boone and Crockett system's great. But this meat idea, I think you're onto something. And I played around with this same concept about 15 years ago, back when I was with Minnesota DNR. And this was during the era when our deer population was really, really high, and we were trying to bring it down, and we could shoot 5 deer a year. And there was no way that I was going to be able to eat 5 deer a year, but I felt this obligation to shoot 5 deer to try to bring the population down. And so I started selecting and shooting fawns, and intentionally. My first deer that I ever killed when I was 12 years old was a fawn. You could still see spots lightly on it. So I'm an established long-term fawn killer, and I have to say that the quality of meat in fawns is spectacular. You lay out a backstrap cut from a fawn and lay it next to a mature doe or even a buck. I mean, it's just a lighter color. It's like veal, and we all know veal is great. So yeah, there isn't as much of it, but the quality of it's really high. Now, how does that weigh out against an adult doe? I'm not sure. But what we worked on back then was we tried to come up with a way to promote fawn killing, and so we came up with a scoring system for the Button and Crockpot Club. And do we get another train coming through?
Yeah, it's a second train. It's a 2-train show.
Yeah. So the button and crockpot system was based on the fact that, first of all, I think for folks that are QDMA members or quality deer management folks, they think killing a button buck is a sin because, next year that deer is going to score 140. And then a year after that is going to be a record book buck. Every deer is going to be a giant. So you can't shoot buck fawns. I have always had a problem being able to tell a buck fawn from a doe fawn. Quickly in the woods of Minnesota. I usually know it's a fawn when I'm pulling the trigger, but I can't tell them apart. Anyway, they both taste good. But the button and crockpot club was, we measured the length of the button. But the way to score high was how fast you could drag the deer 50 yards. So the smaller the deer, the faster the drag. So that was part of our scoring system. So I want to throw in the part of the toothsomeness of this meat index may involve how easy is it to get this out of the woods or off the mountain. The smaller, the easier the drag.
And I think you're onto something. I've actually struggled with that the tenderness index of it, the toothsome part of it. Mm-hmm. Is there a way? Because I think you're exactly right. There's like a 10 on the toothsome index. There might not be a lot of it, but that might displace 4 times the amount of a 4 on the toothsome index. So there has to be some way to kind of establish those baselines.
So if you have high TMI, which Andrew obviously does, what kind of number are we looking at? Do we get like a point per pound of meat and then 5 points for each point on the meat quality, and you get deducted 1 second for each second it takes you, or 1 point for each second it takes you to drag it 50 yards, or how does this all set up?
Well, I see where you're going, because clearly there needs to be an established minimum score just to have all-time recognition, but there also needs to be an upper end so that, we are all going for something here. Mm-hmm. Like I'm gonna have a world record TMI.
Yeah.
And how is that established? So I think you're exactly right. I guess I'm going to establish right now, I think it should mimic the Boone and Crockett scale. So I think there should be, for elk, there should be an established minimum of 380, and we'll kind of jigger the sports around, or the scores around to figure that out. Huh. I need your help. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm the idea man. I'm not great at execution.
Looks and ideas, they're all we're going to get out of you. Don't laugh at me.
Inappropriate comments too.
Like I'm laughing at you.
Yeah, and inappropriate comments. I for what it's worth, Andrew, I think your comments are perfectly appropriate. They make me laugh, and I'm sure they make our listener laugh as well.
Well, we're going to kind of spend a little time here in the off season thinking about the TMI, but I encourage anybody with ideas of how to rank, evaluate, apportion scores to comment on our Facebook page.
All right. So here's a question for you.
Our Facebook page would be a great place to discuss it.
All right. I have a question for you guys. Is it possible for a smaller animal to have higher TMI than the worst of a bigger animal? Is this all about the calories, or is this all about the quality? Or is it more about the calories?
I think it is possible.
The T in the title, the toothsome, that to me sounds like a subjective term, and calories is objective and empirical. I don't think we should get too hung up on things you can actually measure. This should be, personal opinions, so people can fight endlessly over it.
Purposefully arbitrary.
And I do too. I think there should be abundant use of the deduction in this as well.
Oh, yes.
So basically, if you come up with a TMI, the only validation you need for that is that you can argue your point.
Exactly. That's the scale we need right there.
Yeah.
But as long as we do it so we don't have contempt for the people that disagree with us, then I think we're good.
Do you think we have to limit the ability of trial lawyers and lawyers of all kinds to even use the TMI since they're trained to argue?
I think that's designed for that. I think this is litigious as hell, which I think is the whole point.
Yeah.
Like there are so many subjective qualifiers here that, ultimately the best defense is going to be, well, it's situational.
Okay, so you know how states have regulations where based on the Boone and Crockett score of your animal, your fine is higher? What if we can get states to start adopting regulations that would punish poachers based on how badly they have violated the TMI scale? I mean, so like if you go poach, I don't know, a muskrat that doesn't taste very good, that there wouldn't be as much punishment as, say, if you poach a real tasty beaver. Beaver backstrap is spectacular. See what I did there, guys?
Yeah. Poaching beavers might be a great band name.
Oh, we used to make beaver jerky in college.
Jeez, times are tough up.
I thought that was more like seventh grade.
You ever had jerked beaver?
I don't think I ever have.
It's a little greasy, but
well, seventh grade's been fun with you guys
Saturday
today.
Night, you're in college.
I sense a flail. I'm hoping somebody can put a bright bow on this because it's time to wrap this show up. But I can't leave it just hanging open-ended as it were.
All right, I have a real question. Can my TMI contain windows? So, like, any quail could score between 0 and 20, and any pheasant between 0 and 40, and any turkey between 0 and 80. Like, are we thinking that the bigger the animal, the higher its attainable TMI?
So you've accidentally stumbled on kind of the great exposure of this thing. Obviously I think it's sort of calibrated for big game, deer sized and bigger, but I think, so here's what I would say. I think each of those species needs their own TMI. I don't think you can compare a quail to a bighorn sheep.
Yeah, that's tough to do.
Mm-hmm. But I think we're following a pretty good precedent where, each of the Boone and Crockett species also have their own way of scoring. So it might be a little more time consuming, but I think we can do it.
So what kind of TMI would you estimate the average pigeon that flies out of a grain bin would get?
Remind me, Bronson, since you were most recently at the National Wild Turkey Federation, what is the scale for a trophy gobbler? Looking at spurs and beard length and weight. Is that like 70 points?
Yeah, 70 points would be a huge bird.
I have no idea, Andrew. I've never scored one of my birds. I had a bird scored when I was in Canada because the guys that I was hunting with keep the book in Canada. But I've never, I'm much more experiential than scorekeeping on my animals. I've never had any of my birds measured, so I don't know.
Shameless.
What I'm getting at is maybe there's a way of assessing kind of that baseline using turkeys as kind of the avian platonic ideal.
Shameless plug, since we're doing that on this podcast now, is you can actually score your turkey on NWTF's gobble map built by your dear friends at Powderhook. So if you ever do want to score a bird, just type in the digits in there and it'll do it for you. Brought to you by Powderhook.
Can anyone get Powderhook, or do you have to be a member?
Oh, anyone can get Powderhook. You can use Powderhook for free. Whether I'm just going to leave all innuendo about Daisy Duke out of this. You can use Powderhook for free. That's it. End of story.
Okay, but I think that cute girl on the front door of Powderhook maybe needs to be changed up just every now and then. Maybe just a cute little like hip thrust. I can't. I'm done talking.
That's your daughter.
That is your daughter.
I know. And that's why I realized, like, the minute I was into this thing, like, Daisy Duke to replace Iris McKean is not a bad trade.
Man.
I wouldn't want to go the other way. Well, I don't know how in the world you've done this, but if you've made it to this point of our podcast, dear listener, you're going to probably stick with us through anything. Any last words, Ryan Bronson?
No, I'm just currently working on the intro and to figure out how I can do it funny and encapsulate this episode without using the word erection.
Dinger, what do you have to say?
I think I'm done saying today. It's time to get off gravel.
Oh, we've been off gravel for some time.
we're in the dirt, in the mud.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, and until next time, keep it on gravel.